Today is Chaf Tamuz Atashin Samech Tes. We're in Hemshik Samech Tes from the Rebbe Rashab on Amid Mem Gimel.
So we told everybody had a very elevated Shabbos.
Yeah.
Right, so we're talking about the Ondu Raglo Vayimahu al Harazaisim, the passage in Zechari Anovi Vanivka Harazaisim. The Harazaisim itself is going to be split. Va'inyan ha'bakia hazais is a new inyan in bakia, as we saw. I think we were holding here. This is a bit of we were speaking. Yeah. Va'ina kamoi bakia shalaparasa. So we saw that when the oil comes through a parasa, it's also described as bakia. Yeah, the boka is a parasa. Because the parasa is a heavy resisting force to our oil. Parasa is a curtain. Is umishum kach the amshocha of the oil alidei the parasa is also called a bakia. However, over there the where are we? The bakia shel parasa. הוא על ידי הכובע תחילה בפרסה ומסווה האויר וכאשר בוקע את הפרסה נמשך האור המצומצמת ולא כמהוס אור הראשון. So that in the inyan of a parsa was what we call a inyan from the slabshas, that the air was given the slabish in the parsa. We saw that was the difference between tzimtzum and parsa. The tzimtzum was a inyan of siluk or miut in the air. The ilu parsa, the air is actually mislabish. The air kamoshahu is mislabish in the parsa. However, we saw that and alidei the inyan from the slabshas, and there occurs a certain akova. What akova means, like holding back or passage kaviyoho. Not in time, but in, as it were, a unification or an identification with the matzah inside the parsa, and that causes a avus with the ayin, that the oil becomes slightly more thickened, and we saw that inyan of thickness in the oil is the yerida klape matzias, that the oil becomes a matzias oil. Because be'etzem matziyose is gilui hamoya, therefore the etzem meaning of an afilu pnimi in a taya madrigas is gilui hamoya. Therefore it's not a inyan which talks about or is megala matziyus, the concept of matziyus. And therefore the thickness in the oil is that it becomes more shy to the inyan of matziyus, and it becomes in itself a matziyus of oil. And therefore, kasher boikea es a parsa nimshach haora, when it splits through the parsa, then what is nimshach is haora mitzumtzemes v'loi kemahus er harishon. Not only it's limited, what that's in of tzimtzum, but the slabshus and the akova in the parsa caused it to change literally its mahus. So now, obviously, we don't mean mahus in the etzem mahus of the inyan of mahus, because we're talking about oil, and it also remains oil. It doesn't change to another entity legamre. What do we mean by saying the inyan for loika mahus oil harishain? Like we pointed out that the inyan for oil is kiloi hamoya. Therefore, the inyan for mitis inyan for oil is the message of einoid milvadik. Because oil is dovuk in the moya. The father message of oil is heder hametiyah. And if we say that the oil after the parsa becomes already shayat to the inyan of ilamas, and it becomes shayat to become a moker ilamas, and even to be mahava the ilamas yesh mi'ayin, then that means that it's become shayat to the inyan of matziyas, and not only matziyas, but Matzias, nor the Matzias even of another entity which eventually becomes Nivroi, which means that that's a shinui in the mahus of the oil. In other words, not the etzem meaning of an oil becomes another entity, but in the oil gufa, that's a change of what's called mahus, because there's a difference in mahus between a inyan which is only to be megala the moya and the etzem, or a inyan which in yoni is to be mechaye mahave nivroim, or as it were a inyan opchi from a inoid mil, but a inyan opchi of inyan amoya. And that's called a shinoi in mahus. So the Rebbe said we had another, so that's one inyan in Bakir that we had. Then we had another inyan in Bakir, which was the Bakir of the Erasei, and we saw that was the inyan of Sukkot. We had it on the previous page over there on Mem. But the Rebbe was Mavaya, the inyan of the Hamshochas Hamakif in Sukkot was also Nimshach Derech Timtzum Masuyam, and that was called a parsa, like Yankiv Avinu says when he comes into the sukkah, the inyan of the Ushpizen. And the psuke Ushpizen that he says, Oz Yiboka Kashacha Oirecha, that then your light will be split through. It'll break through the morning light, the morning light, that had got the morning star. So we saw that was also in from Bakia, but we saw that was a Bakia, Shana to the inyan of Lislapshus Paparsa, even though it's also a certain min tzimtzum kamoi the inyan of parsa, but the Bekir the Eva Seiva visited Nimshik kamoi shehu in even ein Seif and Makif, and yet not because it's a Makif ala Sukkah, and yet nonetheless we said it was only a ha'ora bilvad legabi the inyan amiti as a Seiva how it was, but Makoirei Harishan now it was Nimshik mitzad Yom HaKippurim. So we see from that even though the parsa over there and the Bekia of the parsa doesn't cause a shinui mahus, because it's not shaykhin seiva of shinui mahus, however, it does cause nonetheless only ha'ora bilvad legabi the previous gilui of the raseiva. But we saw that the inyan from Yom Kippur is mamish moki inyan raseiva legamri, and how it's nimshach in Sukkot is al chaponim. Yeah, but there are tzimtzum, even though it's meir, but there are machif adayim. But we said, and that's alidayin and a parsa, but that's yiboka, a bakiyas a parsa, but it's on a higher level than the one we just described, and but nonetheless, it's nimshach only a ha'ora bilvad. Now we see a third inyan in bakiyah, and that's the bakiyah of the ha'arazaisim, which is going to occur early Osid Be'love Bizman HaMashiach. And we saw that Bekiya Hazais Hu Shenivka Ha'etzem. The very etzem itself is going to be split. Shelamayla Mishpashtas, but that's Legamri higher than the whole inyan Adigiloim. Shezeu inyan Har Hazaisim. But we saw that was the Doimim, and the Doimim was an expression of the etzem. Shehu Pchinas Ha'etzem Asher Shom Botel Venichel B'chinas Makoyer Achochma Kakoyer Hatzeimer Sheba. So we saw that the Makoyer Afila the Gile of Chochma Stimwa, which is the Makoyer of Chochma Tov, in the inyan of the etzem is Koyer Hatzeimer Shebet. We saw it's only a low level and a low ha'ora from the etzem, which leads to the inyan of Gile Achochma. We call it Koyer Hatzeimer Shebetem, just like the Koyer Hatzeimer, but Oret is only a ha'ora bilvad from the etzem ha'daimim. So we saw that inyan from Koyer Hatzeimer was Mokeh HaChochma of a Hara Zaisim, that's the etzem ha'daimim, and it's completely Lamaila mi inyan Mokeh of the inyan HaChochma, which is only the Koyer Dimin of the Koyer Hatzeimer Shebetem, which is only a low ha'ora bilvad, and not the etzem. I mean, if we're going to say that the very etzem itself is nivka, then we're going to have to search for a pshat. What does it mean that the etzem itself is nivka? So we're going to have to say that kilo, that's like splitting the helem of the etzem, and the etzem itself becomes mishgala, and that's heipach matzias al derech harogio. Al derech harogio, the etzem is what it is, but it's not pagolo to the to the Makablim. But the etzem inen of that coming through the normal Helam into Gilui, like the Makablim, that's called Bakir. It's like breaking the whole Seder of the, what you might call, the status quo of the Eter. That the very essence of the daimim, which in this case is harazaisim, but that will be nivka, v'hu shelo yeh gidul hachokma me ayin dekesa rak ali de koher hatzeimer shebedaimim shebahar. And he said, what that means is that all the inyonim, which up till now have only been giluim of lower ha'ores from the Etzer. The inyam from Chokhmah has grown, the gidul of Chokhmah grew from the ayin of Keser, only through from the madrega of Keser, which is ayin legavidah, Chokhmah ayin timoteo. It only grew from that, but derech inyan of the koher hatzeimeach bilvad, inside the daimon of what we saw, that's a bottle of v'niklal legavid the daimon. And the Gilead Chokhmah was only from that level. Shemamela ba isavas b'derech ein areich. And therefore the isavas of the inyan from Chokhmah from Keser, Chokhmah me'ayin timotei, comes in as even that it's b'derech ein areich, b'china shinui hama hus. Like we said, that's a inyan from oil which is Gilead etzem, mamish Keser. And b'frat pnimis a Keser, mamish Gilead etzem. And then it becomes a inyan of Shoresh U'Makeh of all the Ne'atzolim, and for that matter, Kulam B'Chokhmah or Siso, all inyanim come from Chokhmah. Ibramim, that's a inyan from Shinui Yama Amahus, like we saw, a inyan which is only Gilead etzem becomes a Makeh, although it remains there, it becomes a Makeh for the inyan of Yesh. That's a inyan of change in the etzem make-up, or what you might call the mahus of the oil. Just like we see Lamata, that the koher hatzamech in the earth has the ability to give forth gashmistic sachen, but be'emes the koher hatzamech itself is a in ruchni alidei koher hatzamech sheba oretz, because the koher hatzamech be'emes is a in ruchni. Yes, ruchni is the koher hatzamech. Yoyir b'tzimtzum liyes megadol hageshem. What geshem means, all the tzmochim hagashmim, what they grow out of the earth. And so that koher ruchni, which is a koher hatzamech, he goes through certain tzimtzumim in order that he should become a makir for the etzem gashmi, which goes out of the ground. So that's like a shinui in mahus. Yeah, well, that's a yerida, even in the koher hatzamech himself. Like we saw, there were different madregas in Chokhmah, which led to the actual coming about of the Savish Yesh Miyayin. There was Chokhmah Stimur, and in that Gufa, a krum or a parsa between Chokhmah, so the whole Arichas Ayinyonim. So there, V'chaku begidla Chokhmah me'ayin. Like we saw, that there's a growing in Chokhmah from the ayin of the koher hamaskil. Like we saw, k'moy yomim yedabeiru v'yireiv shorim yedu Chokhmah. It's a pasuk in Tehillim that days literally will speak, and many years will add more into wisdom. In other words, that as time goes by, there's a growing and a increasing in the storage of Chokhmah in the mind. And that is because the whole yom yesh is pashtas tzmicha zo. But koher hamaskil, haskil, in other words, the ability of the koher hamaskil to give forth askolas increases with the increasing of the time. Of course, that's dependent a little bit in that he uses the koher hamaskil. If he doesn't use it, it could be it doesn't grow very much. But if he's oisik bazeh, then it grows and it increases and causes that the koher hamaskil is much more ready and much more mukshar to give forth all sorts of chokhmas. Shalidei zeh nimshach isavas b'bchinas metziyat seichel b'bchinas yesh v'dovama, and through that the koher hamaskil gives forth a nekudas chokhmah, which later becomes an understanding, it becomes a dover hamusag, and that becomes a inyan from yesh v'dover compared to how it was in the koher hamaskil. Vagam, says the Rebbe, and also when he will grow up in his chokhmah, and he himself will become greater and more adult and more elevated in his chokhmah. Is like the lashon in Chazal is that who is a zoken mishakona, chokhmah. Yeah, what that means that he gained more chokhmah mim koiro. Where does he get the chokhmah from? He gets it from the fact that his koach hamaskil is much greater and much, as it were, more developed to produce him all the inyonim other chokhmah. So that comes mamish me from the koach hamaskil into the koachs that he has in the siklim. Chadoshim that he gets, and they grow and they become more elevated and they become more often from the Koach HaMaskil emes. But that's all in an even from me'ayin le'yesh. In other words, first of all it was me'ayin le'yesh, b'mokeh harishain, and then it goes to Chochmas Timur, further parsois, until it comes into the Koach HaMaskil, and then we see that later on it goes down to a further Yerida into Chochmat Tatur, well that's Malchus, and then we get the Etzem Misavas Yesh Mi'ayin in the Indian of Bria Beklau, in the Indian from Bria Zainamas, it's a further Indian from Yesh Mi'ayin. What the great Rishonim said about that, Ein L'cho Yesh Mi'ayin Godel Mi. In other words, that there are the Yesh Mi'ayins L'fneizer, well, the Indian from Chochmah, from Koach HaMaskil, from Chochmas Timur, is already Yesh Mi'ayin. Chochmas Timur from Kesed is itself Yesh Mi'ayin. But the Indian from the Yisavas of the Yesh, or in Oilama, that's Mamish Ein L'cho Yesh Mi'ayin Godel Mizeh. But it's all just different developments and stauselers, as you might say, from the original Chochmah Mi'ayin Timotei. Harizabo Mi'ayin Le'esh Mamish V'hainu L'fi Sham Shocha Hi B'chinas Tzmicha. The whole thing began in a koyach, which is a koyach hatzmicha, shezehu alidei hefsek akrum v'ha hapalter. We saw originally from Pnimius Atik that the hisavas of Chochmas Timur was alidei the inyan from Paralza, and we saw that there was a krum around, as it were, Chochmas Timur, like a membrane, and that was the emissary Paralza, and then we saw there was a further parsa between Chochmas Timur and Chochmah Hagruya, and those parsois, they are like a form of shinoima. They cause a shinoi mahus, it's like the idea of a curtain, as we explained before. And now that's what the Rebbe adds. You have a shoyer sham shocher him b'chinas tzoymeach shebe'elyon levad. It's only from the lower level and ha'ora bilvad inside the koach ha'etzem. V'loch ein harizeh bo b'chinas shinoi hama. It's only a ha'ora and it's only koach ha'tzoymeach bilvad. Therefore, from the state of how it was in Chochmas Timur into Chochmah Geluya, but then it's almost like a shinoi hama. Because that's already become shy to say the Shtauselas, and eventually to the Indian of the Savas, the Elamas, Ve'ilu, how it was in Chochmas Timur, it was Lamayla Mizeh. And the same, how it was in Chochmah Atik, and it becomes the Shurish of Chochmas Timur. It's also a Krum and a Palza, but it's also a Shinoi Mahuz, because at least it's already the beginning of the Gila, of the Seder, of the Shtauselas Ainyonim. So that's all called Koach HaTzoy Me'ah. And therefore we saw that the Dugma Mizeh Lamayla Hu B'chinas Chochmah D'Maisa Parashit. So now the Rebbe said, Dugma for them Lamayla is what the Eibishter placed in the Inyan from Maisa Parashit, the Inyan from Chochmah. I'm getting a bit concerned. I was sitting with a person in my office before, an old Talmud of ours that he came to visit me, and we were discussing a very, very important Inyan. And he said he was going up to the Zal, but he's got to get to the airport. And he said he was going up to the Zal to write something down. And then he was going to come down, and because his baggage is locked in my room. Maybe he doesn't know what I'm teaching. I thought we
should check the Zal.
A tall fellow, big tall chap. He was a thin fellow. I don't know. His name was David Schmidt. I was beginning, because if he doesn't goes, and I don't know if he's going to...
Schmidt?
Yeah, Schmidt.
American?
I don't know if he's going to the airport in time. I'm a bit concerned about it. I thought he would come here, he's supposed to give me something, I'd give him the key and he'd take out his bag. But he hasn't come. And I'm checking the Zal, maybe before you're checking the Zal, maybe check in my room and the area between here and my room. Maybe he's looking around. He's trying to work out to where I am. I told him I'd be in the Shia, but I don't know if I told him which room. You know?
I'll look.
I'm concerned because he might get out to the airport late. You know. He's a very brilliant former student of ours. He's a lawyer, but he's very active in Shabbat mitzvahs. But he does a lot of work. And we're having a whole discussion together as to how certain things could be. It's taking big momentum in some parts of the United States. The whole, it's and then he had to. He's going to give me a certain document, but he had to copy something that was there. And he said he's only going to go away for a few minutes. He's already been gone well over half an hour. So I don't know what happened to him. Anyway, I mean, I'm sure he knows what he's doing. He's got to get to the airport. Anyway, so we saw that that's the union of Klolas Amshocha of Chochmah, how it is Alidei Parsa, and that causes a shinui that the earth becomes shayat to the union of Matthias, Aishtauschen. Vadugma Mizela Maila, Ubchinas Chochmah the Maisa Bereshit. So we see there's a Chochmah which is shayat to the whole union of the creation. Now this is not the Chochmah of Torah. It's put down the two inyone Chochmah. There's what's called Chochmah the Torah, where Raisa mi Chochmah Nafkis, and then there's the union of the Chochmah which is Melubish in Maisa Bereshit. And that's what the Rebbe is medactic, that Bereshit Nami Maimahu. That's what the Gemara brings. In the Sector Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara brings that Bereshit Nami Maimahu. In other words, we always talk about Asara Mamoris Nivraho Oilam. So if you count all the times it's written Vayem Elokim Kach and this came about, then you only find 9. You don't find 10. So the Gemara, not only the Gemara, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, at the beginning of Perek Hey, it says Asara Mamoris Nivraho Oilam, and then it asks the famous Shaila V'halei B'mayma Echad Yochel Lihi Hibodet Elo, how do you call it? Lifroa min harashoyim shema'abdim miso'ilam shenivu v'litan sochotei v'tzadikim shemekayim miso'ilam. I mean, that's a huge aridus b'fnei atzmei. Was it the pshat, a portrait over there? Avol chaponim basora mamaros nivro ilam, and we're you only find 10.
He's in the zone. He said he knows where it is. We'll be down in just a few minutes.
Oh, very good, excellent. He knows what he's doing. It's and the Gemara says there's only 9. And for the Gemara, Bereshis Nami Maimahu. That the word Bereshis is itself a Maimah. That's one of the Asara Mamor. And it's very fascinating. What's the pshat in that kufa? Bereshis Nami Maimahu. What sort of Maimah is the word Bereshis, and how did it start everything off? So some people don't pshat that that's what the adequate Pirkei Avos means. V'halei b'mayim echad yochel lehiboreis. It's like a mayim kloli, and there's other tests, other mamoris. There's a little bit muksha in the Loshen. Loshen says b'asor mamoris never. Then it says v'halei b'mokim echad. Mashma that's kill another. In is lefalfu v'zeh harbe. But al chapanim the maskana the Gemara is that Bereshis is itself one of the Asara Mamoris. Whatever that may mean, meaning that the way it is in Bereshis, what Reshis Chochmah, well, that's how the union of the whole Bria is al Chaponim in Chochmah Hagluya, let's say. If it's only Chochmah Hagluya, then it's got a shaykhs to the Maimoris. That's whatever it says that Bereshis Nami Maimahu, yes, Sheyotzo Me'ahelem Demoke HaChochmah, Me'ayin Le'ez. In other words, why is it called one of the Mamoris? Because it's already gone out of the Helem of Chochmah, the Ayin of Chochmah Stir more into Chochmah Geluya, and therefore Yeah, it's me ayin yeliyesh because a chokma me ayin timor matei. It comes even from chokma timor to chokma glui also b'derech ayin liyesh. And if yuchol liyesh yisavas bria gashmius mipchinas chokma zu. From that level of chokma, you can eventually get down into malchus, and you can get the in and a bria gashmius from this chokma. In other words, that's what the famous lashon in the Zohar is, that Chokhmah Bereishis, Reishis Chokhmah, or that's called Chokhmah Iloah, and Malchus is called Chokhmah Tatuah. That's the one on that the in of all the Asias of Malchus, really their shirish is in Chokhmah Iloah. Kemavoy in Tanya in the Geras HaKodesh chapter Hey. But the Rebbe's Bavai over there, the Emes Oisias which come out are really their shortages in Chokhmah. And in Chokhmah Kufa in Penim is a Chokhmah. And if Chokhmah Iloah and Chokhmah Tatuah have a Chokhmah Iloah Malchus have a Shayach, therefore Malchus is called Chokhmah Tatuah. And therefore he says that you can get a Bria Gashmias from that Chokhmah. Ukemoishakosu Kulam B'Chokhmah or Caesar, that the whole union from the Asiya Gashmias comes from Chokhmah, albeit Chokhmah Gluya, or it comes from Chokhmah. Liyesh Shaboah Chokhmah B'Chinat Tzmicha. It's come in a form of Tzmicha, albeit Tzmicha itself has a trace of Yesh Mi'ayin. The Mazel Elyoin, well that's the union from Mazel, the union from Yesh Mi'ayin, and the union from Hamshocha, Be'oifen. Shel Mazolis V'Sairois, as we saw the whole beer in that from the Mazel Eliam, which is Chokhmah Stir, B'Shinui Amahus, with a change of Amahus, Alidei Aparsa, the B'chinas Haklum. We saw that's the membrane, Kaviocho, over Chokhmah Giluya, from Chokhmah Stimor, and that's also called a Kluma. It's also called a membrane and parsa. That's the way the Bekiyos are in the Seder, the Stauses Agiluim, not to be confused with the Bekiy of the Yerushalayim. That's another Indian. Or they come through the Indian of Parsoit, and they call it Bekiy because it was like a new Mahus, it's like something that broke through a tremendously powerful holdback, but that's the Indian of the curtain and the Parosai. So there were all those Inyonim are called Ishtaushlis B'derech Parsois, or albeit they have in themselves Bekiya, but nonetheless they're called Ishtaush. Okay? Bekiya Zo, but that's what we're talking about here. That the Harazaisim itself is going to split. The Etem Doimon itself is going to split. Bekiya Zo, Harazaisim, Huinim Bekiya Zo, Achmus Hatainug, Verotzena Poshut, כמו שהוא למעלה ממכר החוכמה יהיה בגילוי בבחינת החוכמה שלא יהיה על ידי בחינת צמיחו ויספשטת על ידי לבוש מסך או פרס הכלל. Oh, sure. So you finished it? You finished it? How are you doing from the point of view of time?
My brother-in-law is going to drive me.
Yeah?
My brother-in-law will drive me.
He's already here?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Guys, Schmidt, this is David Schmidt. These are the guys. This is one of our former Talmudim, David Schmidt, very active.
Once a Talmud, always a Talmud.
So, have you got the thing?
Yeah, I'll leave it upstairs on your desk.
Huh?
Shall I leave it on your desk?
Oh yeah, I've got to give you the key anyway. So yeah, leave it on my desk. That's a good idea. So, here we go, that's the key. And you'll have to pop in for a second to bring back the key. And okay. Well, I won't take it back, but I'll put it back. That is the time. He came together with another guy. They came together. They were both very tall. Very tall. I just can't figure out the fellow's name now. I forget the name. I know him very well. And he became a Chassidish Gemara. He got married, but he's got children. He's a big mishchez. He's a big full of chayas. Baruch Hashem. Adam Baruch Hashem. But this guy is not some, he's very commandments. Okay, so the Rebbe says, Kulam b'chokhmah osisa. Why? Because the chokhmah is joyred into eine van smicha through the eine van mazal, but that's eine van cyrus, that was over eine van tzimtzum godel, the derech shinui amahus, through the parza. Aber this bekia is going to be gila etem, and what sort of etem? Who bekia is oya atzmus hatainug v'rotzen ha-poshut. כמו שהוא למעלה ממקר החוכמה, בגילוי בבחינת החוכמה. It's going to be made into chokma, not through the infant smicha, which is aloha orabavad, which came about through levush masacho parsa klal, ki im shiyum shach, it's going to be derived and miskara the etzem kamoishu. But then the infant chokma is not going to be a Matthias Yeshva Dova. So here we see a pillar dikizah. First of all, we see that if we go L'mayla mi Chochma and L'mayla mi Koyach Tzameach, we get into Tainug V'Rotzen. We don't get into Chochma B'Klal, we get into Tainug V'Rotzen. And those Tainug V'Rotzen are going to be Meir Kamoishaheim, Mamish Tainug Atzmi, Tainug Rotzen Aposhu. Rotzen means before it's actually become a Rotzen Goli with its detail, and therefore it's called Rotzen Aposhu. It's a Dayan Mudal. Yuchad with the Etzemat, that you can't talk about the Protiv Klal, or they are going to be Meir into the Indian from Chochma direct. So you might say, well, he came by Chochma. If they're going to be Meir, and Chochma is only a thing which came about through Parza, and through all sorts of Tzimtzumim, it'll should become bottled by Matthias. And no, we see it's going to be Meir into the Indian of Chochma, and the Chochma is still going to be there, but it just won't be Yeshu Matthias Dova, but it's going to be another type of Chochma. Well, since the second was, which it does, how can it be another type of Chochma? So, as so the Shalo, what's the meaning of Rotzen Tainug Rotzen Posh? So, that leads us into a very profound thing, which we're only going to do, very Bekitza Nimrat. And that is from two Kitzovis. On the one hand, we have to say that why would they have created the world? I mean, the Indian from Chochma is already, like we said, it's already on the way. Kulam b'Chochma Sisa, that's already on the way now. And I feel Bereshis Nami Maimu is already on the way into the other Tes Mamore. Do whatever be the pshat in that Indian from Bereshis Nami Maimu. And the Indian from Chochma is already the beginning of the making, as you might say. Chochma, the Maisa Bereshit. Then there's even Chochma, the Torah, which has also got a certain shaykh, but it's much higher. We'll see how that fits in as we go along. So, as sort of Shaila, where did it all begin? Why Kaviohu? Why did the Eivster want to create a world? What did he have in the whole Indian of creating a world? So, Ein Chanami, the answer is that we don't really know. Okay, the Alter Rebbe said, Avataiva Nisava HaKodesh Baruch Hu Yedira Batan is kein Kashia. You can't ask any shilas of Avataiva. To say in L'mayla Mitam. What do we mean by the word Taiva? Time, Kaviyohu. There's a divine in Shailan or Kol Musik is there. But Abe says Nisava Liya Islo Yedira Batan. Time. And that time becomes a practical demand, it becomes a Rotz. Tainug is L'mayla mirotz. From the Tainug there eventually becomes a Rotz. The Ames not only foresees, as it were, the Oinig, but he goes for it. What that is, in for Rotz. In the way the Rotz clicks with the Tainug, Bereshis in Yono, is that the Rotz is pushed. A Dayan Ein all the details and all the inyan. And that's what we see also by Mensch. We can find all sorts of Mishalim. A Mensch has got this tremendous tainug in which he doesn't even know what it's going to be. With the inyan for tainug and the inyan for Mashiach, we do know how it's going to be, and we don't know what it's going to be. And we're not messing around, and we're not going to take any delays for an answer, are we? That's a separate. Menschen can have all sorts of menschliche Tanugim, Mushroshim, Batzmusa, Mamis, and then they undergo all sorts of derivations until they eventually reach a rotten practical, Kavioch it's also like that. The shortage of everything was Nisava Kodesh time. That led to a infant rotzen, because when you have an emersa oinig, then ultimately you want it. And rotzen is the etzem devekis and cleavage to the idea, to the etzem minim, to the etzem manevis, or the etzem kaviochol. Rotzen is already practical in you. And therefore rotzen, it's just tzinoya. It's in from a pipeline that gets things moving, it starts things flowing. That's in from rotzen. It ever rotzen from the word rots, to run. Once you get soining, it leads to a practical desire, and that's uniform. Sure. Once you go beyond the uniform chokmah, which is the beginning of the practicalities, you get back into the simplicity of oinig and rots and how they are miyugad with him, and they have nothing to do with the actual practicality, with the actual tzmicha, as it were. The muldum is however, the pili place of the Zachi is that how does he ever start the whole thing? How does he set it rolling? How does he get from that oining into something which is going to eventually lead to his whole chokhmah? That's the first and foremost thing. After the Helam von Kesser, the first thing is chokhmah stimor. And in chokhmah stimor, go for pnimis chokhmah. Eventually you'll see so the verbinding between that oining and the rotzen and the actual dibur, how oilam dibur comes out in the information chokhmah. Chokhmah is like, as a word, the key point. It's the kesher. In other words, in many drushim it says that really the oining and the rotzen and chokhmah are really one and the same thing. And really, why is it that when a person has this unbelievable oining, when he gets a new idea, and that's a zah oining which can't be described, and it's kilu l'mayla mikola oinigim she'eshna. And there's a ma'aseh with Konos or Rabbi Avu. You know the story. I told you the story. Rabbi Avu was once walking, and he got a new Tesefta Chadata. His whole face lit up. And I feel a Goysha Matronisa, the Yerushalmi tells the story that she walked past and she saw his face. And I couldn't figure what's going on with this guy. And his face was all lit up. And there's a whole amazing Magushim story what she thought he was up to. Rabbi Yochanan said, oh no, that means he found a Tesefta Chadata, that his whole face is lit up. What is it, the inyan from the oinig in Chokhmah? The oinig in Chokhmah is the highest oinig what there is. Not because it's morally high, it just happens to be that way. Kach is it. Come to it, the Avis is going to move down from this Chokhmah, Nisava HaKodesh Baruch Hu, and the Rotzen which comes from Nisava HaKodesh Baruch Hu. Where does he move to? He moves into Chokhmah, and he moves into Chokhmah with the whole essence, even though it's like a Shinui Mahuz and so on, Tzimtzum and so on. Also, of course, they have a kesher. That's the inyan that occurs. First of all, through the inyan from Bakiyas Adoimim, you're going to get the etzem inyan of where it all began, the Tainuk and the Rotkilu. The Ape is going to bring all these creatures into what started him, and what is the whole inyan of the Bria Mitzadatmut. He's going to bring you into a Shukvas Mitamid. How's he going to do it? He's going to do it through Chokhmah. And there's not going to be a bittul of the Chokhmah. He, Atzmas Mahuz, in Tainuk, and in what's Eishahim, Atzmas Mahuz, and the Chokhmah are going to live together. How we can design, because really, ultimately, they're the same inyan. Tief innovating is the old expression, deep inside, they're all one and the same inyan. Kamua. Because like we just explained. So there was even though the Chokhmah is only a tzmicha and it's only his pashtas, it's going to be a kli, or I don't know if it's going to be a kli, or it's going to be nimshich, the etzem k'moishahu. So he said, then the Chokhmah won't be a metzias yesh v'dova. It'll still be Chokhmah, and it'll still be recognized as Chokhmah, and you'll still experience it as Chokhmah, but it won't be a yeshua a metzias. So therefore he said, "Ubeli shinoi mahus, belishina mahus, mi'adu she'ena bo b'derech ishtaushlus, b'china smicha mi'ayin yes, or that gila the rots and the oineg, it's going to come down directly, kamoshu, into the infant chokhmah. Ela gama chokhmah, hu b'chinas ayin de kesa atzmei mamish. Chokhmah is going to be like where it comes from. A chokhmah is going to be manitli, a gilui, the etzem inim from whence it itself is, nimshot ayin the ayin of kesa. What is the ayin of kesa? The oineg. Yeah, well, that's the pshat shim is atik. Pnim is atik is oineg. The Rebbe said, it's going to be chokhmah. It's going to be chokhmah, but together with that, it's going to be the gilui of the etzem mami. In other words, that since the etzem, as we explained, carries in itself, or that inyan, chokhmah, and therefore the chokhmah is misanig be'etzem inyan begilui ha'oinig. So chokhmah is only a form of a lavush to the pnimis ha'oinig. And therefore, even though it's only a lavush, it's a lavush achmi. Therefore, the two of them are able to the lavush and the etzem will live together. Beliko stira or bitl of the lavush ligabed, because it's a lavush achmi. It's not a dovazar. Therefore, they'll be able to live together. Mamish inyan echad, and that's the inyan of the ishabas of the machif with the pnimi. Oh, that's the chiddush of Mashiach. Yeah, the Mashiach will bring that the pnimi will remain, and the machif will be made in the pnimi. In other words, we'll live in a guf exactly the way we live now, but it will be made etzem elikus in the pnimi. Not a pshat that the pnimi will just disappear and they'll come in the machif. Now the makif will be mischaber with the pnimi, and both of them will be together. So what you will really do is use your koyach hachachma, or in your koyach hachachma you'll be masik directly the infant mahus, and that's what he says. Haskel v'yadoya oisi. In other words, you will come to know through the infant chachma oisi the Mr. Line. Anyway, that happens to be the case. All right. Okay, that wasn't the right. Am I carrying things with me?
Yeah. He's carrying me.
No, you don't.
You know you're going to have to edit this out of the Why?
You have to extend the eye.
Yeah. The eye is guidance. Only pleasure, Balpada is if it's not in Kedusha, it's guidance, which is pretty good.
There's a recording. Oh, okay.
Oh. There's often getting claps. Not that actually.
I get it.
Don't bring it.
That's it.
Hey.
Yo, can you permission for anything?
Heeft zich ook nog. The Chokmah, we're using Chokmah, should become a Sisa. So Chokmah become Lamaisa. El Shekam Chokmah, who begins ayin the kesa atzmei mamish. In other words, that the Shabbos of the Machiv and the Panimi, Shiyeh b'Moshiach. Exclamation is barely here.
Rabbi, I thought that
that the world, it works like this anyways right now, just that it's not.
Well, what?
That this is how it works right now anyways, that the Or Panimi is there and the Or Maki.
Oh yeah, they are. That's right. I mean, we're not saying that the Or Makiv is not there now.
Right.
But what does the Elter ever say in Perik Mem Ches? The Elter says that the Elter says that the Or Makiv is there, and it's nimtu b'pnimis or nimtu b'kol ha'briya, or it's not b'goloi. You got it, Shimon. The whole Indian, the Chiddush Eliyosid is going to be Begiloi. What we have now, Begiloi, is on the Opnimi. That's what is Meir Begiloi. What's going to happen is that the Makiv is going to be Meir Begiloi Yachid with the Opnimi. So it'll just one lead up the other. The Giloi, the Makiv is incomparably, greater than the Opnimi. So the point of the Maimon is that it'll just swallow the other one up. What do we need the Panimi for? And over said the Rebbe, no, it'll be a Ishabas of Zeba Zeh. In other words, that you will use your Koiches Panimium the way you have them now, but they will be koilet, and they will be absorbing and aware of things incomparably beyond them altogether, and they'll all live together, believe steer one to the other.
We see that Chochmah in Maskala is the end of Oinik, right?
Yeah.
So does that mean someone who's always learning new stuff is about Taiva? Because he's always someone who's always learning new stuff.
Yeah.
Is he about Taiva because he's always going to Oinik?
Yeah, I say Gil Cook. So that was on a very high union, but there's the Friedrich Rebbe. You do that. He said that certain inyonim, Sof, they're a taiva. They're like a form of oinik. He said, but to get to that taiva, you got to give away all the other oinik to get to that taiva. You follow? So the same thing. To get to that taiva, the union from Giluya, Shoylish, Muskolas, which is in effect oinik, you got to be prepared to overlook. I don't know, completely, just rule them out. But you got to be prepared to overlook all the other oingi, and that kilo to be misrachis in that oinig by Yuchat. You follow? Is Mamela. That's an good. Mamela, we see that the kilo from Moshiach is going to be Gora Pelatikizar. That in a way, nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be absolutely. What you might call completely reversed. And that's what Yesh Lahari was a Harabi. But the Rambam says, well, looks sometimes to be very sort of, almost like Balabatis, really there's hidden in it tremendously profound in Yon. And therefore, even though in Pshat, the Rebbe learns that that's like two different Tkufas. But the Rambam writes, when he gets to Moshe, that Lo Yishane Shum Dova, Minhogi Shalaylam, Elayeh, Oilam, Ki Minhogi Noyeg, when Moshe will come, El Sheyeh Bittel, Kol HaMilchamas, V'yeh Sholem, V'zeh, V'po, V'sham. And then he writes, Kol HaYudim, V'aksuvim B'ha-Naviyim, they're written about what's going to be, that the animals will all live together, and he says, Moshelhu. I love that it's going to be. So the Ravid gets angry on that. The Ravid says, "What's Moshe? Then who is Mufurasis? Who said that they're a Moshe?" So the Rebbe answers on that really it's two Tkufis in the Rambam. That the Rambam learns it's two different Tkufis. And when he says Lo Yeshinui B'Minhagi Shel he means the first Tkufa, and then afterwards there'll be a Tkufa where all the other Inyonim will be Miskala, and then there'll be Tchis Amazing. It's well known, the famous beer, Lamed Hay, a very famous beer. However, the Rambam does say, it is written in the Rambam, that when Mashiach will come, Lo Yishtane Shum Dova, it won't really change the whole Indian of how the world functions. So, the Rambam's got a point. Chassidus does not say that everything's going to be you're going to be another human being, you're going to be some sort of a angel or something. You're going to be the same basic person, but you're going to be incomparably milder than the Malachi. In the Kli, the way it is, and the Pnimi, the way it functions now, well, that's going to be Makabel in itself, in Yonim Shaloi Be'erech, from the Inyan HaSeivim, and they're going to be together in the Guf. Not that one one's going to be mevatel or push away the other. That's ulai b'derech remez, what the Rambam's hinting at, b'derech drusha upon him, that b'derech tachlis, we could say in the Rambam, that's what he hints, that lo yishtana, really inyonim, when Moshiach will come, they're not going to alter the whole, what you might call, building of the Bria, the mivneh ha-Bria is not going to alter. And that's what the Rambam meant. Kein yesh lema b'derech hesh. Auch upon him, says the Rebbe, v'hu inin ischabres, shezehu etzem atainuk, shenivdu be'erev mliyais mokel amatzias mahu seichel v'ha soga. He said, and that's going to be the gilui of the ayin, the kesef, which is etzem ayin, like we said before. Yeah, and there's a word missing, we don't know exactly what word that is. Shenivdu be'erev mliyais mokel amatzias mahu seichel v'ha soga. Now, notice he doesn't say it's mudo betachlis to be a inin of chokmah. Now, he said it's mudo be'erev mileis moker lemetzias mohu seichel v'ha soga. In other words, in the inin of chokmah, kamoy, there is a moker for seichel mohu soga. Mohu seichel v'ha. There is in chokmah a certain shaykhs, because from chokmah comes bina, yeah, and from bina you get hasoga. However, what he means to say is that in how it's l'mayla mizeh will be able to dwell together with that in together. They won't be say so one day, one the other. And he said that that's the pshat u'kamoi haskel v'yodoya oisi. Yeah, no, that's what's in Yirmiyahu Novi. What Yirmiyahu Novi is al yishalel chacham b'chachmazeh al yishalel givu gvurotei al yishalel osher b'oshrei. Yeah, ki'im, yeah, haskel v'yodeya oi, si, yeah, wie steht dort? V'oisach chesed u'mishpat, bo'oret, ki bohem chofatzti ne'um Hashem. It's a famous pasuk in Yirmiyahu. So Yirmiyahu says that you shouldn't be misal only b'chachma, you shouldn't be misal b'gurim, b'midas, you should be misal, you praise yourself, and you should know that the ultimate shleimus is haskel v'yodoya oisi. Now oisi means atzmusay itself. Oisi means the Eivshe Kamoicha yabi atzmusay. And haskel is the in of chokmah. Haskel is the in, and yodoya is like a yedi atzmiyah. Yodoya means you should, as it were, know him or appreciate him. Which means that in the haskel, in the normal gilui of chokmah, there's going to be a gilui of oisi that we're going to know, as it were. And that's the whole mile of Chokhmah. Even though Chokhmah is batil, and it's got inyanim which connected to Oinig and all that, also because Chokhmah is a form of information to the men. Chokhmah is the beginning of how you come into the picture. And remember, the Eiv's going to take you into the picture in a way that he's going to show you Atmas in the Inif and Haskel, which is Chokhmah, and it's going to be your doya, Inif and Yediyah, and Inif and information, like Gabi in the immediate Atmas. Liyosi, there's a simon, a tzokosot, they're not going to be seisa one the other, no, they're going to be, as it were, mashlim one day, the other. Like we said before, the tzokosot, they have a kesha atzmi b'pnimiyutam. Ukemoi, like we say, vayeda kol po ki atopi, alte v'yovin kol yitzur ki ato yitarte, well, that's the famous lesson of the tefillahs in Rosh Hashanah, that's in the Shemoneh Esrei of Rosh Hashanah. Vayeda kol pa'u, every made thing, everything that the Eivishter made, meaning mamish nasiya lamata pa'u, yeah, a thing which is being shaped and made, should yeda kol pa'u ki ato pi'alta, he should come to know that you made him, and he should feel that belosh in yediyah, it should be in a even clarity and chayas in him, that the Eivishter made him mamish atzmusa is bara. And that's going to be Begola, and that's what I've often explained, that we see that all the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah are really about Liyasid. All the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah. In other words, that if a Yid gets up in the atmosphere, I ain't saying, Moke Kol, Moke Kol, into the Inif and Pnimis Atayna, well, that's Inif and Tekiyah Shofar. On Rosh Hashanah, he gets up there, what does he ask for? Shalom Aleichem, we want Moshiach? No, that's what he says. If you get up that high, then you got to have a bit of seichel to ask for the right thing. And if you look at the tefillahs of Rosh Hashanah, they're all about Moshiach. Look carefully and you'll see. Allah. All the tefillas in Musaf, all thing, everything about the Gila. And the Rebbe brings in Tofrei Samach, the Rebbe Rashab writes it. Anyway, Lafisa Kumtais, that Inyan is revealed to us on Rosh Hashanah, because that's the beginning of the year, and that means that Moshiach is supposed to arrive. And what is going to be the matter? That we're going to know every made thing is going to know Atmas made him, or we're going to be Yeda. He's going to know it, but Yedi. And eventually that's going to become Beyovin Kolia Tzur. It'll eventually go down into Bina. You know, it's one on the famous story. You guys know the story about the Alter Rebbe when they came by the Maggid, the Rosh Hashanah. But the Maggid wanted the Alter Rebbe should be on the bimo and blowing the shofar. No sudden before they started blowing the shofar, he looks around, he can't see the Alter Rebbe. The Maggid. He looked around amongst the guys and he saw the Alter Rebbe is not there. And he said, "Who is Zalman you?" He said, "We have to have Zalman you. He's got to be here right now." So somebody piped up and said, he knows where the Alter Rebbe is. He's in the side room down there and he's down him. So the Maggid said, bring him. We need him here. So he went down into the room and what's he find? He finds the Alter Rebbe. And the stender, the Alter Rebbe is done with the stender. But the Alter Rebbe is on the stender flat out on the floor. Mamish. Absolute. Pishut Yadam lying flat on the floor on the Alter Rebbe. What's he going to do? The Maggid's waiting there. Here he is, his mamish fainted on the floor like that. Like an ever demon. What's he going to do with him? So all of a sudden he gets an idea. He goes over and he shouts into the Alter Rebbe's ear. And he says, "The Rebbe ruftich." He says, "The Rebbe is calling you." He said, "The Rebbe ruftich." So he said, all of a sudden, the Alter Rebbe just came out of the whole thing. He woke up like a, and he stands up and he says, "Where is it?" And he just points the way. Cloud of dust, and the Alter Rebbe is on his way. And the Alter Rebbe came up on the bima, and then the Maggid said, "Oh, he's here." So later, they said to the Alter Rebbe, "What was with you, man? The Maggid already getting ready for Tkiyah, shoving you flat out on the floor. What is this giving?" So the Alter Rebbe said that when he came to the pasuk in Shemoneh, when the Yeda called Po, Pi Ato, Pi Alto, he said that the Etzem Po, the Etzem Yesh Agashmi, is going to know Atzm Sayin Tzef. He said, his Po couldn't take it. He's Yesh Agashmi, and this is Shekin Fanem, and he just went. He went out on the floor with absolute prostration. At least he lived the Indian. Yeda called Po, Ki Ato Pi Alto. So I don't know if I recommend you guys, Rosh Hashanah, you go fainting with your stenders on the floor and having to have people wake up at the whole Indian. Although you have to feel that the Yesh Tavakis.
Even during another story where it said that the Alter Rebbe wanted to know the Kavonos, he asked them, he wants, the Maggid asked Alter Rebbe.
That's another man.
And he said,
that was before Tkiyah, sir. That was a long time before Tkiyah.
So he learned.
Maggid called in the Alter Rebbe and he said he wants him to be the Baal Tkiyah. So the Baal Tkiyah, okay, he asked him. And then the Maggid told him, oh yeah, so then he said to Maggid, "We're going to be the Baal Tkiyah, but the Maggid, I need to know all the cover." So the Maggid told him all the covers, and then the Alter Rebbe said he's terribly sorry, but he doesn't know how to blow shape. He can't be a Baal Tkiyah because he doesn't know how to blow the shape. So the Maggid said, "What?" He said, "How you talking that you deceived me?" And so then he told him all Moshe Rabbeinu. You know the mass. I already told you guys the mass. Okay, so that's before Tkiyah. So this was in the mass. You were talking about the Shaset and Indian. There was a Pillar Digzach. I saw in a Maimon from Rebbe, Maimon Shapillah. And a Maimon on Shabbos, I saw a Maimon from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe and the Tamuz Tzedek, both of them, different stages in their lives, looked at the ceiling beam, and they said, I don't see the beam, I see only Atma Sefer. I see the Machaya, the Ein Sefer, Machaya is Hebrew. And the Tamuz Tzedek said in a slightly different lashon. He said something about he sees the Ein Sefer, he was a different lashon. The Alter Rebbe used a different lashon. So the Rebbe says, that's, why do we have to know that story? It came down through the Rebbeim. We know that story. And it's a story for, the Sia Yisrael, but they were able to look at the beam and see the Koyach Eloki in the beam. They didn't see the beam, they saw only the Koyach Eloki. So the Rebbe says that's a sign that we have to live. The fact that story came down to us, so we have to live like that, at least a trace of a trace. Yeah, we have to live that way. We have to bring from Chabad down into Regish and down into Poel Mamish, that when we look at the world, we see Elikus, not the world. You guys want to be Chabadniks? And he said that was as Asinus Koyach, and these Maises, that they were an Asinus Koyach, and they were told to us that we have to be at least a little weeny bit like that. The Rebbe never lets you free. Whenever anything comes about, he always ties you into it. I think people say, this is a mice about the Alter Rebbe, this is called. Says the Rebbe, oh yeah? You heard of the mice about the Rebbe? You've had it. Understand? You got to be like that yourself. Oh, George. The begins Chabad, hier begint Atzmus Mami. Thank you, my gentlemen. Have a good evening. Is in Zaydas. And he does it the Chabadske.